Those of us who've been lucky enough to get into any of the previous closed tests, or have been keeping an eye on For Honor in general, know that there's currently 6 playable characters, yet there's a total of 12 announced. Hi, my name is MrSmartDonkey, and in this video we're going to address what we know and speculate on what we don't know about all 12 characters. Let's start with the basics. For Honor knows 3 factions, the Knights, the Samurai and the Vikings. Each faction features 4 different characters, one in each of the 4 class types. First, we have the well-balanced Vanguards. Next up are the fast, agile but squishy Assassins. Then we have the tanky but slower Heavies. And finally, the one class we haven't seen any characters from yet, the Hybrids, who supposedly are advanced characters with a wide range of abilities. Let's dive a little deeper. So far we've seen 2 characters for each faction, and just by looking at those we can already tell that just because characters are the same class type, they might not be very similar at all. Let's take the Orochi and the Berserker for example. The Orochi is a master duelist, you won't find any better, and an Orochi will get more points for killing someone by themselves than by fighting in a group. The Berserker on the other hand is great at harassing the opponent with infinite change, which makes them great for fighting together with teammates. Enemies will have a hard time blocking every attack, especially when a teammate is attacking that enemy at the same time. This is what the Berserker gets more points for as well. So we can already tell that 2 characters in the same class type play quite differently to one another. While we're on the subject of the Assassin class type, why not speculate on the final character in the list? The Peacekeeper is the 3rd and final Assassin character. There's very little we know about the Peacekeeper since Ubisoft has not given us any information on the 6 missing characters so far. All we have is the image which shows us all 12 characters. One thing that immediately sets the Peacekeeper apart from the other Assassins is the fact that she dual wields a sword and dagger, from which we might assume that she could be the fastest but perhaps also the weakest of the 3 Assassins. We can also see that the Peacekeeper dons a hood. Combine that with the dual wielding of sword and dagger, we might say we've got ourselves a roguelike character. As we all know, rogues love her from behind, which tells us the Peacekeeper might be similar to the Berserker in that she'll want to attack enemies that are already being attacked by a teammate. However, since we already have an assassin type character like that, my guess is that the Peacekeeper will specialize in something else. What exactly that will be remains to be seen. Moving on to a different class type, the Vanguard. We already have access to all 3 Vanguards, so there's not much to speculate on, but let's quickly cover them anyway. Starting with the Warden, probably the most vanilla of the 3 Vanguards, extremely balanced both offensively and defensively. Next up is the Kensei, a very good offensive character due to his long range attacks. He's a little on the slow side of things, but he can do tremendous damage with some unblockable attacks. Finally we have the Raider, one of the more annoying characters to fight against because of his great disabling capabilities. The Raider can pick you up, bash you against walls or throw you off cliffs with ease. The 3rd class type we're looking at is the Heavy, of which we currently only have access to one character, the Conqueror, an extremely defensive character that uses a shield and a flail. The Conqueror interrupts attacks with a simple block, and can even use his stamina to go into a defensive stance, in which he blocks from all directions. Moving on to the characters we don't have access to yet, the Shugoki and the Warlord. Let's start with the Shugoki. The image of the Shugoki tells us that we might be dealing with a terrifyingly strong character. The Shugoki wields a kanabo as his weapon of choice, a weapon used to smash through enemies' armor and bones. This tells us that there's a very good chance the Shugoki will likely have a wide range of unblockable attacks and in general hard-hitting but extremely slow attacks. Perhaps the Shugoki will be vulnerable to attacks from multiple opponents due to its big mass, likely making it a somewhat immobile character. The final character in the Heavy class is the Warlord, another shielded character similar to the Conqueror. The Vikings were known for their shield walls, so we can assume the Warlord's shield will play a big role both defensively as well as offensively. We can see that the Warlord uses a relatively short sword, which could indicate that the Warlord might be faster than one would think. The short sword would allow for quick jabbing at the enemy whilst the shield offers protection. My guess is that the Warlord might be very different from what people would expect. Finally, we've arrived at the class type we know the least about, the Hybrids. As I said before, the Hybrids are supposedly advanced characters with a wide range of abilities. Besides the image, this is literally all we know about them. There are no hybrid characters playable yet, so it's very hard to accurately guess on what exactly they're going to be good at. That being said, we're going to speculate anyway. Let's start with some things that are relevant to the class as a whole rather than a specific character. The description advanced characters makes me think that the hybrids are going to have a high skill cap. They will likely have an answer for every situation, but knowing when to use each ability will be hard to learn. Onto the characters, starting with the Lawbringer. We can tell from the image that the Lawbringer has chosen the halberd as his weapon of choice, an extremely versatile weapon which plays straight into the theory of having an answer for every situation. Due to the length of the halberd, we can expect the Lawbringer to have good range as well as abilities to throw enemies around. Next up is the Nobushi, who we can see uses a naginata. Once again a versatile weapon that plays into the many abilities the hybrids supposedly have. Similar to the halberd, it too has range going for it, with the weapon being the size of almost 1.5 men. Because of this, I expect the Nobushi to excel against enemies with short range, such as the Orochi and the Berserker. The Nobushi might have abilities to push opponents away in an attempt to keep this range advantage. Last up is the Valkyrie, who appears to be using a spear and buckler. I'm not positive the shield is small enough to be classed as a buckler, but we can't say with certainty it isn't as big as the shield the Warlord and Conqueror use. That, on top of the light leather armor we can see, this might indicate that the Valkyrie possesses mobility as well as reach with her spear. That brings us to the end of the video. If your speculation is different from mine, please let me know in the comments. I'm excited to see what other people have made of the information currently available. Thank you all very much for watching, I hope you've enjoyed, have a good day and goodbye.